In the wake of tragic events such as the recent home fire on Pembury Lane in West Bloomfield Township, some support services are needed not only for those directly affected by these fire emergencies, but also our firefighters and those related to any victims that may be involved. Usually when that happens, the first person on the scene from our West Bloomfield Fire Department is Department Chaplain, Pastor Tim Holzerland, who joins us now on the Splash Live. Pastor, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to have you on to give us some insight into this, because it's a tragic situation that we had in West Bloomfield Township late on Sunday evening, around 8 o'clock, with the fire being reported on Pembury Lane. 3 souls lost in the fire, all being children. So in a scenario like this or other emergencies that do arise that may be really tough situations for our firefighters, take us through your role in the fire department and how you help our firefighters, our paramedics, and even others as these scenes are often unfolding immediately in the aftermath.
Usually what happens is I get a call from the chief, and he'll let me know what took place. And then there'll be 1 or 2 different things that'll happen. He'll say, I need you to go to this particular address, or I need you to go to one of the stations. We have 6 stations in West Bloomfield. There's going to be a time when he'll say, I need you to either with the firefighters or to be with the people who have suffered loss in the incident. And so I may be speaking with a family, I may be speaking with firefighters. It just matters where the chief thinks I'll be best used depending on the situation. So they kind of change from situation to situation.
And it's good that happens, because not only do our firefighters need some initial consultation when they have seen difficult things on the job, but these are tough situations where families or individuals that may have just experienced these emergencies, I would imagine, would be very distraught in those opening moments. So as someone that is on the front lines in your capacity, what maybe advice do you have for people that are in our community that may be affected by this tragedy we just underwent, collectively, as they start their grieving process, and of course help others in our community through their grieving process as well?
Yeah, I would say some of the things you can think about, and again, I probably give the disclaimer. We're going to be talking about difficult situations that have taken place, very tragic, very horrific. And so for some of the people who may be watching this play out on a regular basis, it's okay to take a break from it, to kind of pull away from, all the updates and all the things that are happening, and give you an opportunity to kind of pull away from it. So the same things happens. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
So the same thing happens with our first responders. Again, this is something that's a very critical incident. This doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen on a regular basis. It's something that is unique. Now, it does reoccur, then different tragedies take place. But for firefighters, again, when this takes place and after it's done, there are 2 things that can happen in that case. There could be, if I'm called to the firefighters, then it would be what I would call a diffusing. So we talk a little bit about what they saw, what they heard, what they smelled, and then kind of walk them through a process of dealing with it, and at the same time then getting a chance to take a break from it. So normally what happens in some of those cases too is that the people who are directly affected by it, who are there at the particular scene, they could be pulled out of service for a short period of time to recoup and kind of regroup, and then the rest of the other 5 stations would take over when they feel, everybody who is affected by it, the chief and other people who are part of the process would feel, okay, they've worked through this. Okay, now they're going to go back into service again. So some of it is, especially after the scene has just taken place, you kind of have to be pulled out of the situation in order to, again, diffuse or debrief uh, that particular situation. So I talk about people who are watching some of these things on a regular basis. If the people who literally go through this have to take a step back, obviously, if you're watching it, and again, the coverage could be continuous, you need to take also a step back and to regroup, so to speak.
Yeah, everybody wants to know more about these sorts of situations because they're horrifying, and you're just so curious about why did this happen? Why do these things happen? And especially for those that are on the front lines, or firefighters, or paramedics, certainly others in public safety like our police officers, they see things of this nature to some extent or another on a day-to-day basis, a year-to-year basis, certainly. And so how do the chaplain services that are provided, that you're providing to the fire department, that Pastor Monica William and others have provided in the past to the police department, ultimately help our first responders navigate even the difficulties that come along with the most basic day-to-day work that they do protecting our community?
Well, one is a chance to get to visit with them and to be with them. The other thing is, again, depending on how critical the incident was, again, they go through things called the debriefing or diffusing. And this happened recently. I was not a part of the recent debriefing that took place after the fire, but in the past, I've been part of debriefings after horrific events have taken place and people have died. And so it's a way of kind of walking people through it. I have in my glove compartment kind of these cue cards that are here, and they'll talk about different phases. So this is a way to walk through what did I just see or hear or smell. All my senses were involved in it. So there's a way in which you can kind of go through and get the group together. And again, this is very confidential. This is something only for the group or for the small group of people who are there. First phase is a fact phase. So you kind of say, how were you involved? What did you do? Then after that, then there'll be a thought phase. What were some of the things you were thinking when you first came upon the scene? What were you thinking after the situation was over? Then there's a reaction phase, and some of it could be, one question is asked is, what was the worst part of this particular incident that happened? And so each of these is a way to kind of unpack. This is what I saw. This is what I felt. This is what I smelled at this particular situation. We'll talk about a symptom phase. So there are physical things that can happen. Maybe you might be jittery, or there'd be other ways that would be physically you're working through that. People who have encountered, again, great grief. Sometimes they'll make, I would say, for lack of a better word, maybe a grunting noise, or let's say pound the chest or do something along that line. There's emotional reactions. There's usually talking about, a guilt over the situation, or an anger that might come out. There's a cognitive reactions for first responders. Sometimes that can be nightmares. And that could happen after that takes place, after you go home, after your shift. There's behavioral reactions. Sometimes that can be isolation, a sense of fatigue. I got enough sleep last night, but I'm still tired. So all of those things, again, could be the symptoms that could take place. And then there's a teaching phase. And some of it is, again, there's might be an appropriate time when people will be saying, I should have done this, I could have done that. And this happens at times with first responders, and saying, you could put anybody in that situation, the outcome would be the same. So again, one thing is, you didn't have control over the situation. I know you're taught, you're trained to have control of the situation, but you can't have control over every situation. And then there's kind of, after the teaching phase, then there's kind of, I want to say, sending out, so to speak. So, we tell, please don't use alcohol or drugs to deal with this. Drink water, walk, get some exercise, and again, get a moment to, again, be with your family for firefighters, and take some moments, again, so that the appropriate amount of rest so that you can re-engage again. Again, some of the things that, happen with that is, you get to be hyper vigilant, obviously.
Sure.
You want to make sure that this never happens again. And so you need that time to debrief, to defuse, to process all of this stuff, so that I don't need that kind of hypervigilance. These things are going to happen again. And when they do, here's proper ways in which I can cope with it.
That's really interesting insight, too, and good insight for those out in the community who will be seeing our first responders going forward. We know from the initial reports, all 6 fire stations in West Bloomfield had responded to the fire at Pembury. And so, as you had mentioned earlier on, some of those firefighters were directly in the rescue and may have been encountering some of those things that they will be debriefing on with other consultation within the fire department and public safety in West Bloomfield. Others are going to go back to the day-to-day right away. But given that all of our firefighting stations were there, we had police presence as well as our first responders are getting back out in the community. Obviously, that direct consultation wouldn't be something that would be had one-to-one between a first responder and an individual member of the community. But as us individuals see these first responders out in the community, what advice do you have for everyday Greater West Bloomfield citizens to have them be able to show their support to our first responders and have that also be a part of this process moving forward that could be something positive for those firefighters, paramedics, and police officers?
That's a good question. Sometimes they want to just do the job.
Of course.
And so that's what they want to get back to. They're used to serving. So again, there are some ways, again, I'd say don't necessarily have to go so much out of your way or big expressions.
Of course.
But I think just the little things, if you do see them and they're getting lunch or they're buying food for later that evening or something. Sometimes they're in some of our grocery stores or things along that line. Again, a thanks for your service is always a good thing to do. And so I'd say it's just the little way so that people can support and show their support for first responders. So, but they are a group of people who want to serve others. So, I mean, they're kind of used to that. They're not used to being, to be served by people in the community. So just simple ways in which people can be thankful for what they do, either by word or again, if you send letters or something like that to Station 5, which is main one where the administration department's at. There's all ways in which you can express your thanks for what they do on a regular basis. And that's, that's what I do as well.
And those little shows of support that can go a really long way.
Constantly thanking them for what they do. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It truly is those little shows of support along the way that let our first responders know the work that they're doing is important to us individuals, to all these families here in Greater West Bloomfield, given that they serve West Bloomfield, Keegle Harbor, Orchard Lake, Sylvan Lake, and provide additional assistance to our neighboring communities as well. Thank you for your insight today, Pastor Holzerland. We will let you continue on, but before we let you go, anything else that you would like to say at this time to the community or our firefighters?
That they'll continue serving. They will continue to do what they do, and they're very professional. They're well trained. I think in the last 5 years, especially, there's a great effort towards emotional wellness, and they're starting to embrace that. And I think the ones who are going to be coming up in the future are going to be well trained in that. We have a peer support group in our fire department, and so we have some great tools and some wonderful people, and a great group of men and women who serve in West Bloomfield. So I think the community should rightly be proud of their service and what they do. So that's what I would say about that. So people in the community, again, give thanks for the great people that we have in the community who work so hard for us.
That is certainly the case. They work very hard each and every day to protect our community, and it's good to see also in our fire department that emphasis on support, not only after the direct emergencies that our firefighters and our paramedics are involved in, but for the day-to-day rigors of the job as well. Pastor Holzerland, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.